Hey everyone, my name's Madison. Thanks for checking out my channel. Today I'm going to be discussing one of life's most important questions. How many books do you read in a year? So, the other day my husband brought home a Wall Street Journal from the grocery store because that is his treat for himself when he does the grocery shopping. Not a milkshake or anything, but the Wall Street Journal. So there you go. But anyway, he brought it home and I was perusing it along with him and I found this article titled, "Put this column down and read a book." And it intrigued me. It is from, I think, a humor columnist named Jason Gay, and in it he discusses the fact that according to a Gallup poll, the average American read fewer books than they have in the past. According to the poll, the average American reads 12.6 books a year, so about 13, whereas back in 2016, the average American was reading about 15 books a year. So it's down by 2 or 3 books per person per year, or a year. And the author thinks this is an absolute travesty and has some suggestions to, up your reading for the year. And these suggestions include things like get a book, get yourself a reading chair, and bury your phone. So, I especially think the burying your phone bit is important. But though his tone in the article really, it was hilarious, very amusing, and played into this something that I have been struggling with myself is, does it really matter how many books I read in a year, and are these goals that I set for myself really helping me in any way? And it also got me thinking, where do I fit in with this average and where does my family fit in with this average? So naturally, my next step was to bug all of my family members and find out how many books they read last year so I could gather some data. I'm going to share that data with you and then draw some conclusions and share my reading goals for the year. Now, I surveyed 16 of my immediate family members, including my parents, my step-parents, my in-laws, my step-in-laws, brothers, sisters, brothers-in-laws, all those kinds of people. And of those 16 people, we read a sum of 373 books, which breaks up into an average of about 23 books per person. So the combined Fitzwater, Flickinger, Stanchus, Lebrun family read more on average than the average American. And I thought that was interesting, especially because of the minimum and maximum number of books. The minimum number of books that somebody read was 1. And he said that was up 100% from the previous year. So in the previous year he had read 0 books, and then last year he read 1, and he said that he did enjoy that book. So that's good. And on the other hand, my sister-in-law, Lindsay, read the maximum number of books for our family. She read 82 books last year, which is impressive, but it's down from her previous year. The year prior, she read 109 books in the year. So that range, to me, really, especially because I know these people, it comes down more to personality and interests than anything that has to do with merit, because the problem I experience is that sometimes we put a lot of stock in the number of books we read per year. Obviously that is more prevalent here on BookTube because we're talking about books, but in general, even when I have those conversations with my family members, if I'm not extremely careful in the way that I approach it, it sounds like I'm being a real jerk, like, oh, you only read 1 book last year, that's nuts, that's terrible, which obviously is never my intent. But it's almost in the way that we talk about these things, the way that we talk about our book totals is silly, I would say. So anyway, our family is a little bit above average. What about you? Where do you stand in relation to the average American? If you're not American and you're watching this, I would be very curious to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And where does your family stand against the average American? So the point of the article was that on average people read fewer books. And when I was asking my family members how many books you read this year, I also asked them, do you feel like that's more or less than in previous years? 6 of my family members said they actually read more in 2021 than they had in the past. And 5 of my family members said that they had read less. When I asked my family members who read less why they thought that was, or why they thought that happened, a couple of people said it was because they were like glued to the news, as many of us were. A couple of people said it was because of, lifestyle changes, like my sister-in-law who read the 82 books. Well, she started a new job that last year, and she has a toddler. So, that can certainly cut into your reading time. And then another of my family members said that her commute time was totally cut out of her life when she started working from home, and she was a big audiobook listener. She would listen to audiobooks on her almost hour-long commute every day. So it cut her number of books almost in half. And so that's neither, not necessarily positive or negative, but that lifestyle change certainly affected her, how much she read that year, because she is not a big sitter and reader. She's always up and doing, so she would listen to books when she is, seated in the car. Another interesting factor in my conversations that I had with my family members is the number of people who don't track their books, which just blew my mind. 6 of the people I spoke to do not track their books using Goodreads or some other app or even a spreadsheet or a piece of paper. So given that I know these people, I think it has to do with a couple of different things. Personality, and age. So most of the people who don't track their reading are my parents and my in-laws. None of them track their reading, and 2 of my brothers, actually, none of my brothers track their reading. John knew how many he read, but he could probably just remember it. Zach and Josh both had to think about it for a little bit before they could get me an answer. So they don't track their reading at all, although Zach is a big audiobook listener, so he could look at the books that he had listened to this year. So I thought that was really interesting as well. Not only does it skew my data, but it probably is an issue for the wider Gallup poll. This is probably those statistics are someone's best guess. And does that best guess represent a little bit of optimism on their part or a little bit of pessimism on their part? I couldn't tell you, but it certainly made me curious to see what it would be if we did track our reading. And again, I'm not suggesting that you have to track your reading. I just find it interesting that some people choose not to. And when I think back to why I actually started tracking my reading, it's definitely because of my personality. It's because I'm fairly competitive. And when I found out how many books my husband was reading in a year, I thought, psh, I could beat that. I definitely could beat that. And so I started tracking my reading on a spreadsheet, and then slowly over the years changed that over to Goodreads. And I did beat him every year except last year. So he read 52 books and I only read 50, and I'm actually totally okay with that. But in years past, I would have had some serious competitive issues with him because, how did I let that happen? But we survived, don't you worry. So now for some conclusions. For the past few years, I have striven to read 50 books a year. It's been my goal probably for the last 5 years, and in general, I've been very satisfied with that goal. I did not reach that goal that first year of COVID, and then last year, I just barely reached that goal. And I found that I felt a lot of pressure, and that was, this is obviously self-imposed pressure to reach that goal, and it manifested itself in a way that I don't like. So for example, towards the end of the year, I found myself choosing to read short books instead of long books that I was just as interested in, because I knew I wouldn't be able to finish that long book in December. So I read The Last Duel, which is tiny, instead of starting John Adams when I was actually ready to start it, because it's massive, it's a biography. I knew it would take me forever, and it has taken me forever. I've been reading it for 22 days and I am 250 pages in. I'm loving it, but I didn't start it when I could have because I wanted to reach my goal. This was good, by the way. Not great, but good. And I just am frustrated with that because I can see it becoming a pattern. Why haven't I read that Tolstoy book that's been on my shelf for 1,000,000 years, War and Peace? Because it's massive, and I know that when I start it, it will probably take me 2 solid months of reading, and I won't be able to read anything else during that time. Why didn't I get to the Bronte biography that I was interested in? Because it's just as big as War and Peace and will probably take me longer to read, right? So, but those are books that I really want to read. I want to experience War and Peace. I want to learn about the Brontes, but if I choose to stick to this 50-book goal, I am never going to read those books, which has led me to changing my goal. I went into Goodreads the other day and I changed my goal from 50 down to 40. Within that 10-book difference, I'm hoping will give me a little bit more freedom, or I will feel more free to finish the John Adams biography, to read the Hamilton biography, to read the Bronte biography, and maybe even a couple of fiction monsters that I have on my shelves back there. I already feel better with this new goal because I was able to take the time to finish Little Women, and I feel comfortable taking my time reading the John Adams biography. So far for, the whole 2 days that this has been enacted, I feel a lot better. I'm really hoping this year that at the end of the year I will feel satisfied with the books that I chose to read, and then I will feel satisfied with the process that I use to choose those books. Hoping that the quality of the books that I read is just as satisfying to me as the number of books that I read. So, how many books did you read last year? What's your goal for this year? What do you think about this Wall Street Journal article? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you decide to bug your family members to find out your family average, I'd love to hear that too. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you soon. Bye.